My salutations to all of you. Welcome back to our Gita Odyssey live sessions. Today is our 15th session, and we were reviewing the first chapter of the Gita, Arjuna Vishada Yoga. So, in our last session, we completed up to Shloka 13. So, the whole idea is when the Gita starts with an instruction from Dhritarashtra to his faithful minister Sanjaya to tell him what is happening in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So Sanjaya, looking at the battlefield of Kurukshetra, said that the war was about to begin. The two armies assembled, Kaurava army with a larger number and Pandava army with a smaller number. So before the battle started, the leader of the Kaurava forces, Duryodhana, approached his teacher, Drona, and started giving a little bit of analysis of on both sides. He first enumerated who are all the people in the Pandava forces, and he enumerated a few people who are equally good as Arjuna and Bhima. And then he also enumerated a few people in the Kaurava forces who are also mighty and powerful. And then he concluded that for us, the key is Bhishma, our commander in chief. So he was just telling Drona that we give instruction to all the leaders, all the strategic positions, so that they guard Bhishma. Because if Bhishma is there, Kauravas are going to win. This was Duryodhana's assumption. So we have seen up to that. And more than the storyline, we try to evaluate what is happening in the battle within. Because Mahabharata battle, it was a historic battle fought sometimes back. But more than that, there is a Mahabharata battle happening within each one of us. This battle is engaged between the destructive emotions as well as the adharmic thoughts on one side, and the other side is the uplifting emotions as well as the dharmic thoughts. And initially it appears that the adharmic thoughts are large in number, their voice is loud and clear, but we found that the dharmic forces are there, the dharmic tendencies are there, and if we identify ourselves with that, there is a chance that we can win the battle within. Because whoever win that subjective battle will determine how my country is governed, meaning how my body is governed, what type of feeling comes to my mind, how should I act, how should I use my body to engage with the world, how should I engage my mind. So this victory on the battle within is extremely critical for us to lead a life which is aligned with the path of good, and also lead a life which gives us external success and internal fulfillment. This is the whole idea of the Gita. And again, we also talked about the fact that the chapter 1 of the Gita is the problem statement, because before Krishna starts giving the solution, we need to understand what exactly is the problem he is addressing. So this is what the introduction. So let's go to Shloka 14 and try to continue. So today we will definitely cover Shloka 14, which is such an important Shloka in the Bhagavad Gita. And I don't think we can finish 15 to 19, but at least we will start and we will pick it up next week. So this is the game plan. So let's see. Let's listen to Shloka 14 first.
ततश्वेतैर्हयैर्युक्ते महति स्यन्दने स्थितौ माधवः पाण्डवश्चैव दिव्यौ शङ्खौ प्रदध्मतुः.
This is beautiful because people say that the drama as a branch in Sanskrit language got evolved much later. But when you read these type of shlokas in the Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita, you will understand the brilliance of Maharshi Vyasa, how he wrote the Mahabharata. Because so far, if you really think about what was the scene that was shown before this scene, it was a conversation between Drona and Duryodhana. And hearing that conversation, what Bhishma did, he blew his conch. So the next scene is, what you see is immediately we are transported to that palace of Arjuna, Astinapura. Sanjaya is introducing the hero of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna and Arjuna. It's brilliant, just like a modern big directors like Rajamouli, or even in that the way Jesus Christ was introduced in a movie. All the just like that, you can see how Vyasa is introducing Arjuna and Krishna. So it tells Tata Shvetair Hayair Yuktair Mahati Syantane Stito Madhava Pandavaschaiva Divyau Shankau Pratakmadau. So after hearing that Bhishma's conch, every person in the Kaurava army started blowing their conch, and the whole place was reverberated with the sound of the conch and the drums and the other instruments. Even though it was loud, there was absolutely no harmony. Just like the Kaurava forces didn't have a common harmony, they exactly didn't know why. What is the purpose of their waging the war? And everybody had their own interest, and that is why they came together. The coalition, the common goal of the coalition was not very clear, and that is very well described by the disharmony in that reverberation of the sound. At that point of time, you are taken to a place where you see 5 white horses and a beautiful chariot. And in that chariot, you see Krishna and Arjuna. And they are taking out their conch and they are blowing it. Look at this. You get goosebumps. This is how a modern director introduces a character. Brilliantly. This is what exactly the meaning of this shloka. So then seated on the magnificent chariot, drawn by white horses, and you can see that 5 horses. Madhava, Krishna is named as Madhava, and Arjuna, the Pandava, blew their conches. This is the literal meaning of the shloka. So this picture, Krishna, Arjuna, 5 horses, and the chariot has a larger meaning, which we will borrow that idea from Katha Upanishad, and we will talk about that. But let's go step by step. So let's continue. So the dramatic entrance of the eternal duo. So Vyasa, as I said, just set the stage for that conflict. Not the Mahabharata conflict, but the conflict that is happening within the mind. And the role of Krishna Arjuna in the battle within is very critical. So we are going to explore that very systematically, step by step in the upcoming shlokas. So you see that the scene has shifted from the Kaurava side to the Krishna and Arjuna side. Because whatever we were hearing so far was the conversation between Drona and Duryodhana, and then Bhishma's action to initiate the war, and also the response from all the Kaurava armies. Now the scene is shifted to Krishna and Arjuna, and throughout the end of the Gita, the scene will stay with Krishna and Arjuna, and in between some comments made by Sanjaya to Dhritarashtra. So this is, as I said, like this mirrors the modern cinematic introductions, just like the Bahubali is introduced, just like the Jesus Christ is introduced in the 10 Commandments, that movie. All these are exceptionally brilliance of the directors. Just like that, Vyasa is showing that skill here in this shloka. So Krishna and Arjuna symbolically represents an alliance called Nara and Narayana, the divine and the human. And the combination of this divine and the human is very important, because this relationship of Nara Narayana transcends the battlefield, and we need to identify that Nara, and we just need to, in ourselves, Arjuna, and we need to connect ourselves with Narayana, the Krishna, always. Because when Krishna leads that chariot, our path is very clear, and our path will be the path of good. So this is the whole idea of this, the Krishna and Arjuna duo. And in this battlefield of the mind, which is a combination of the destructive emotions and the adharmic mind, the thoughts on one side, which is represented by Kaurava, on the other side, the uplifting emotions or the positive emotions, along with the dharmic thoughts on the other side, represented by Pandava. And Arjuna here represents our self-control, because in this, whenever we engage in our worldly day-to-day activities, there is a lot of choices we need to make. And usually what is going to happen? We are not making the choice. The choice will take us along with that. For example, when we see a junky food, what happens? Our choice is not that food. But what happens? We will be compelled. Our likes and dislikes, the emotions in us, the cravings in us will force us to go into that path of pleasant versus the path of good. So the role of self-control is to annihilate, or at least take over that destructive emotions and the adharmic thoughts and lead us in that path of good. And this self-control cannot do that by itself. And that is why the self-control in us need to work in union with the spiritual insights in us. The spiritual insights in us, learning through the Bhagavad Gita or any scriptures of your choice, represents Krishna. And when our self-control is under the commandment of that spiritual wisdom, your victory is guaranteed. And that is what is the Bhagavad Gita also is concluding at the end, the final verse of the Bhagavad Gita, 78th verse of the 18th chapter. Sanjaya tells, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishno Tatra Partho Dhanurthara. And there he said the Vijaya and Shri Thuva Nitir Badramama. He says that is the place where you get victory and prosperity. So it is very important not to read Krishna and Arjuna merely as the historic characters, and try to find that self-control in myself. Try to find that internal Arjuna in myself, and we need to get connected with that spiritual wisdom, Krishna, in us, and we need to, that is how we need to navigate our life. So this picture of Arjuna and Krishna, what you see on the screen, is actually Vyasa has borrowed that from one of the most important scriptures of our Sanatana Dharma, which is Katha Upanishad. Katha Upanishad is one of the Upanishads, one of the 10 prominent Upanishads. In that Upanishad, the symbolism of the RathaKalpana is brilliantly explained. The whole idea of this RathaKalpana, it demonstrates the relationship between my own body, my own senses, my own mind, my own intelligence guided by the spiritual wisdom. And it paints multiple paths, like if these individual components, which is my body, the senses, the mind and intellect, if they don't work in union, what is going to happen? And if they work in union with spiritual wisdom, what is our path? These two ideas are very well explained in the Katha Upanishad, 3rd chapter, Shloka 3 to 11. This is popularly known as RathaKalpana. I'm sure most of you might have heard of at least RathaKalpana. And so we are going to take a pause. We are jumping into Katha Upanishad. We are trying to understand what is that RathaKalpana and how it is related to this symbolism of the Bhagavad Gita, and how it is related with our own life, and then we will proceed. So let's, with your permission, we are going to take a short break from Bhagavad Gita, and we are right jumping into Katha Upanishad. So this is the whole shloka. Let's listen to the shloka. I'm not going to explain the whole shloka in line by line, verse by verse, but at least listen to that. This is beautiful. This is beautiful. And I promise we will record it and send it to you Right now I'm using a chanting. So let's listen to that.
आत्मानं रथिनं विद्धि शरीरं रथमेव तु बुद्धिं तु सारथिं विद्धि मनः प्रग्रहमेव च इन्द्रियाणि हयानाहुः विषयांस्तेषु गोचरान् आत्मेन्द्रियमनोयुक्तं भोक्तेत्याहुर्मनीषिणः यस्तु अविज्ञानवान् भवति अयुक्तेन मनसा सदा तस्येन्द्रियाण्यवश्यानि दुष्टाश्वा इव सारथेः यस्तु विज्ञानवान् भवति युक्तेन मनसा सदा तस्येन्द्रियाणि वश्यानि तदश्वा इव सारथेः यस्तु अविज्ञानवान् भवति अमनस्क सदा शुचि न स तत्पदमाप्नोति संसारं चाधिगच्छति यस्तु विज्ञानवान् भवति समनस्क सदा शुचिः तदु तत्पदमाप्नोति यस्मात् भूयो न जायते विज्ञान सारथिर्यस्तु मनः प्रग्रहवान् नरः सोऽध्वनः पारमाप्नोति तद्विष्णो परमं पदम् इन्द्रियेभ्यः परा ह्यर्था अर्थेभ्यश्च परं मनः मनसस्तु परा बुद्धिः बुद्धेरात्मा महान् परः महतः परमव्यक्तम् अव्यक्तात् पुरुषः परः पुरुषात् न परं किञ्चित् सा काष्ठा सा परागति.
I request those who are interested in the spirituality a lot to learn this, to remember this. If you want, we can go take one breakout session and go line by line, verse by verse. But let me give you the gist of it today. So he says, Atmanam Rathinam Buddhi, Shariram Ratha Evacha, Buddhim tu Sarathim Vithi, Manapragraham Evacha, Indriyani Hayanyahu, Vishayan Teshu Gocharam, Atmendriya Mano Buddhir, Bhoktyektartshu Manishnaha. Your body can be considered like a chariot. In this particular analogy, the chariot represents your body. And the owner of that chariot or the master of that chariot represents your individuality, Jivatma. Then the intellect of you, guided by the spiritual wisdom, represents the charioteer. And the 5 horses represents the 5 sense organs. So the the horses and the reins of the horses, meaning that represents the mind. This is the essence of RathaKalpana. See, the individuality in you or the Jivatma in you is Arjuna here. The Sarathi, the charioteer who rides the chariot, is intellect with spiritual wisdom, is represented by Krishna. Your 5 sense organs are represented by that 5 horses, and the mind represents the reins of that horses, and your body is the body of the chariot. This is the essence. So let's see what exactly the shloka talks. So you see, right, the human body is represented as a chariot. The 5 senses are the different horses, right? And your intelligence guided by the spiritual wisdom is the charioteer, and the mind is your reins. This is what the whole RathaKalpana. Now the Upanishad is going to talk about the different scenarios. The sense organs always ride through the path of sense objects. For example, the eyes, the path of the eyes is what you see, the names and colors of the world. Whatever you see, that is what the path of the eye. And whatever you hear is the path of your ear. Whatever you hear is your path of your ear, the sense organ. And like that, the sense of touch, the sense of taste, and the sense of smell. This is how like the horses move forward. For example, if the horses move forward based on whatever just they hear, the charioteer will not reach the final destination. That is the whole idea. So in this RathaKalpana, when the horses and the reins are controlled by the will of the owner, guided by the intelligence with the spiritual wisdom, then what is going to happen? The horses will reach to the correct destination. And this state where your sense organs, mind, intellect is aligned with the higher consciousness Atma, that is the state called yoga. Any process which helps you to get that union of all these together is what is known as yoga. So when the sense organs, mind and your Atma are aligned, your life will be smooth and it will go to the correct destination. This is scenario 1 highlighted by the Shloka. Scenario 2 highlighted the Shloka is when we are deluded. When we are deluded means we are confused. Intellect is confused and the mind is uncontrolled. At that time, what is going to happen? The union between the charioteer, reins and the horses are destroyed. And different horses will go in different direction. And that direction may not be the direction you wanted to ultimately get to. So what is going to happen? They, meaning the horses, the Shloka say they, that means the horses or the sense organs run in all directions, dissipating the mental energy. And what is going to happen? It goes in different direction. There is absolutely no control over the charioteer and you will not reach in the destination, and the probability of getting an accident is also very high. Let's say that you are driving a car. You can say that the sensors of the car are actually the 5 sense organs, right? And let's say that if they are not working properly, and if you do not have control over the steering wheel, and even if you turn the steering, it is not working, and even the driver not in the good mind, or he is confused, what is going to happen? You will not, meaning first of all, you will not reach the destination in time, and sometimes you may not even reach the destination. This is not going to be a good ride for you. Where that is the point Krishna is saying. So the Upanishad say Dushtaswa iva sarathe. When they are not in alignment, when the charioteer do not have control over the reins, when the horses are riding in different direction, what is going to happen? The chariot will not reach the ultimate destination. This is very important. So when there is no control over the mind, when the sense organs behaves like a group of foul horses, Dushtaswa, that is the term used, in the hands of an incompetent charioteer, what is going to happen? You will not reach the destination. And the question is, how many of us pay attention to this? We always try to change what is happening outside. We try to get a new car, a new house. We try to change people around us. But the Upanishad clearly telling us that if we don't change, our life will not be smooth. You may have the best resources in the world, but if you may have the best car in the world, but if you don't have control over the wheels, and if the car itself, you may say that it is a self-driving car, but if the sensors are not working on the self-driving car, what is going to happen? Definitely it is going to be accident. This is what the Upanishad Shloka is highlighting. A little bit more. When we are deluded, right? Estu avijnanavan bhavati. When you are not non-informed, when you are not controlled, like that means confused intellect and uncontrolled mind. What is going to happen? The union between the senses, the mind and the individual self get destroyed. The mind gets scattered and turbulent and becomes incapable of conceiving the truth or the goal of the life. It goes after wherever the horse is dragging us and get into accident. Such a mind is incapable of getting connected with the truth or the God or whatever happening whatever is in your path. And as a result, you will not reach destination. This is very important to know. But when you have clarity, when you have focused intellect, guided by the spiritual wisdom, the mind will be controlled. You have clarity and you will have union between the sense organs, the mind, intellect and self. Then what is going to happen? The sense organs and the mind will work under the controller of the intellect and the self. And as a result, what is going to happen? You see, earlier it was like diverging, and now every activity will be diverged, converged towards the path of good. And when the mind is under that control, the sense organs behaves like good horses. Sadvashva iva sarathi. Then what is going to happen? The horses and the reins and the chariot will be under the controller of the intellect, which the intellect or the charioteer, and that charioteer will take you to the ultimate destination of your life. And when you have this clarity, what is going to happen? When one lets the intellect guided by the spiritual wisdom or the Krishna as the charioteer, we will have strength to traverse to the path towards a meaningful life. And eventually you reach the ultimate destination. The Upanishad tells Vishnu Padam, that is the ultimate destination, moksha. This is what the whole essence of the RathaKalpana. So let's clarify one more time. The whole idea here is you wanted to identify the Krishna and Arjuna in yourself. Arjuna represents the self-control and Krishna represents that charioteer. And when you identify the Krishna, when your mind work in union with Krishna, what is going to happen? The clarity is going to happen and the life will go smoothly. So this is what I wanted to cover with the Katha Upanishad. So let me pause here and request Avanti to comment, but at the end in the Q&A we can add any additional thought on this particular part. Avanti, please add your comment on the shloka.
Namaskar. So let's go to the basics of just the translation of this shloka, just to reiterate a few points, and also let us quickly go over some reiterations which are very required in the RathaKalpana. So first of all, when we see the transition from verse 13 to verse 14, it is a very emphatic softening of Sanjaya's voice. He has just kind of breezed through and said, suddenly, verse 13 said that suddenly everybody responded from the Kaurava side to Bhishma's conch. And the voice was very tumultuous. So he made it very evident, like we saw last week, that it was all uncoordinated and very, very disharmonious. And then after saying that quite harshly, there's a complete softening of his voice when he introduces our main characters for the rest of the Bhagavad Gita, Shri Krishna and Arjuna, with what we call as a transferred epithet when he describes the chariot. So many a times, of course, over here the chariot is beautiful, but we use transferred epithets to even more glorify the inhabitants of the house, the vehicle, the space. So in describing the beauty of the chariot, he's kind of highlighting to us, he's talking to Dhritarashtra, but he's highlighting to us the absolute grandeur of Krishna and Arjuna. So that is something to take note of. He talks about, you all might ask this if you all are avid readers of many books, many places, there are 4 horses actually said that there are 4 horses pulling this chariot. But we go because we want to drive home this whole concept of the RathaKalpana and Advaita Vedanta and how everything builds up. We will stick to 5 horses. Just as trivia, just for you all to understand. The 5 horses that are driving Arjuna's chariot are from the 100 that have been gifted to him by Chitraratha, King Chitraratha. And all of them are celestial horses. They're all heavenly horses. Now, out of these 100, when we talk about 5, we are talking about our 5 senses, as Rajesh has already mentioned. So really, instead of constantly seeing them as an impediment in our spiritual path and progress, if we start looking at our 5 senses as the greatest gift of the human life, it is only agreed the 5 senses bind us to this world, delude us, take us here and there and completely mess up our lives. but it is the five senses only who will lure us towards wisdom, who will help us take in wisdom, which we will ultimately control and reach that goal of self-realization. So just as these five horses were gifted to Arjuna, he didn't snatch them from anywhere or he didn't bully them out of anybody. They were a gift. Five senses, and us having them all intact for a large period of our life is a very big blessing. So let's look at our five senses as that vehicle, those vehicles which are going to take us. The horses only will drive the chariot to its destination, right? So our five senses only to begin with will start driving us towards our destination. So that's something that we have to remember. This particular chariot is said to have had the power to go anywhere on heaven and earth. So that's another thing that we have to understand, that when we earn our merits in life, when we earn what we truly deserve, we have the power to achieve everything in life. And that is something that has been highlighted by Sanjaya here when he just differentiates the way he describes the Kauravas and the Pandavas. So something else that we need to remember is that as long as we are gaining whatever we are gaining in life the right way, through merit, everything that Arjuna and the Pandavas have for this war has been a gift or as a reward for great deeds that they've done or great penance that they have done. So we don't have to shy away from what we earn through penance and through effort and through the right ways that we employ. But we should be assured that they will take us to our destination. One more thing to just understand in that particular verse is that he does say over here also that the sound is tumultuous, that the conches that they blow, the Pandavas blow, is tumultuous. But you have to understand that their particular conches, they instill a fear in the Kauravas. Whereas the Kauravas' tumultuous sound does not have any such effect on the Pandavas. Why is this? Because whenever unrighteousness stands before awakened righteousness, I have said this before, when it stands before awakened righteousness, it trembles, it shivers, it is very, very fearful. Also, the description of the Pandava conches being divine. And they respond, the divine conches respond to this chaotic sound of the Kauravas. Teaches us another lesson, that anything that comes to us that is bad, we have to respond from that stand of divinity always. Never lower ourselves to anybody else's, level. Every time when we respond from our highest divinity, we will win. Because I said it's awakened righteousness. So that's another thing that we have to remember always, no matter what is coming at us, respond with divinity and grace. Is this being submissive? Is this being a doormat? No. It is in fact working from your highest power. And that attitude will never, face defeat. So that's something else that we have to remember. Now coming to the Ratha Yatra. This you all need to, RathaKalpana, you have to keep this in mind very, very properly because we are going to need this. In fact, you should watch the recording of what Rajeshji has just explained. We're going to need this in chapter 2 when we talk about the ladder of fall. Because it is only not understanding this that we all as human beings fall down. So the emphasis on Advaita Vedanta in scriptural or spiritual practices is that we have to build ourselves up to working from our intellect. See, human effort can only take us to developing to the maximum our sukshma buddhi, our subtle intellect. After that, self-realization or identifying with the self or becoming the self is providential. It is only when you're able to maintain yourself at this intellectual control, fully, completely established there, then from there we can think about meditation and approaching self-realization and all of that. So let's just get this point nicely, properly in our heads, that the intellect, which beautifully Rajeshji has explained, which can only be developed through scriptural knowledge. There is a difference. We mistake intelligence with intellect. We are not talking about intelligence here. Intelligence is what we use to make a living in this world. Intellect is what we use to live a life rightly. So there's a keen difference between intelligence and intellect. So we have to focus on developing our intellect through the study of scriptures. That is our only ticket to even living our life, forget to ultimate freedom, even living a proper life. The mind, all of us, all creatures have the mind. So do humans. Without the intellect, the mind is a child without a parent. Imagine a child that has no parental supervision, is just running wild. So our mind is that child without a parent, which has no direction, no dimension in life. It wants this, it wants that, it wants it now, it wants it anyhow. Even a parent that does not have scriptural knowledge, so even an intellect that is bereft of scriptural knowledge, is of no use to such a mind. So that mind, which is represented over here by the reins, has to be held by the intellect at all times. A child has to be guided by a parent at all times. It is only then that we will be able to control the senses and direct them in the right direction, not just let them go haywire. So what do we have to do over here? Continuously, mind we have, no worries about the mind. And there is no way you can control the mind. Try whatever you want, you are not going to be able to control the mind. So our only way forward here now is, luckily we've come in contact with the Bhagavad Gita, to use every word, every verse that we understand in developing that intellect. Once that intellect is strongly saturated with scriptural knowledge, it becomes that very I wouldn't say overpowering, but empowering parent that the mind will listen to. We have to get the mind to listen to the intellect. We can't make the mind listen. There's a big difference. And whichever of the two is powerful always, the other one will bow down to. So that is how we have to function in this world. So remembering that RathaKalpana at all times, understanding the 5 horses are our sense organs. They are not an impediment. They could be an impediment if they are just pulled haywire or pushed haywire here and there by a mind that is not controlled. One more last thing I want to say is, the body acts. At all times, your body will act. The body can only act on 2 dictates. One is by the dictate of the mind, and the other is by the dictate of the intellect. So our effort over here is that we get our body to act by the dictates of the intellect that is tempered with the emotions of the mind. So both of them we try to bring together and perform the right actions to our greatest good, so that we walk, like he said, like we are led to the right direction. Just a very strong intellect with no emotions becomes very terse. You can't live a human life like that. Come on, even Rama showed, now Hanuman Jayanti is coming up on Tuesday. Even Rama showed great emotion when Sita was taken away, because he was in the human form, right? So you can't be completely emotionless. But when those emotions are guided by a good intellect that is imbued in scriptures, you will reach your destination, and quite nicely.
Okay. Thank you, Avanti. Let's listen one more time, the RathaKalpana chanting, and then we can proceed.
आत्मानं रथिनं विद्धि शरीरं रथमेव तु बुद्धिं तु सारथिं विद्धि मनः प्रग्रहमेव च इन्द्रियाणि हयानाहुः विषयांस्तेषु गोचरान् आत्मेन्द्रियमनोयुक्तं भोक्तेत्याहुर्मनीषिणः यस्तु अविज्ञानवान् भवति अयुक्तेन मनसा सदा तस्येन्द्रियाण्यवश्यानि दुष्टाश्वा इव सारथेः यस्तु विज्ञानवान् भवति युक्तेन मनसा सदा तस्येन्द्रियाणि वश्यानि तदश्वा इव सारथेः यस्तु अविज्ञानवान् भवति अमनस्क सदा शुचि न स तत्पदमाप्नोति संसारं चाधिगच्छति यस्तु विज्ञानवान् भवति समनस्क सदा शुचिः ततु तत्पदमाप्नोति यस्मात् भूयो न जायते വിജ്ഞാന സാരഥിർയസ്തു മനഃ പ്രഗ്രഹവാൻ നരഃ സോധ്വനഃ പാരമാപ്നോതി തദ്വിഷ്ണോ പരമം പദം. ഇന്ദ്രിയേഭ്യഃ പരാഹ്യർത്ഥ അർത്ഥേഭ്യശ്ച പരം മനഃ മനസസ്തു പരാ ബുദ്ധിഃ ബുദ്ധേരാത്മാ മഹാൻ പരഃ മഹതഃ പരമവ്യക്തം അവ്യക്താത് പുരുഷഃ പരഃ പുരുഷാത് ന പരം കിഞ്ചിത് സാകാഷ്ഠാ സാ പരാഗതി.
So you can see that the ultimate destination is highlighted as Tat Vishnur Paramam Padam, and so that is highlighted. And then also the whole shloka is highlighted in three different buckets. After describing the RathaKalpana, he says when they are in union, where exactly what is going to happen. When they are not in union, what is going to happen. So that is a brilliant painting of the RathaKalpana. So let's quickly see one reflection and then we can at least introduce the next few shlokas. So Arjuna and Krishna manifest as self-control and spiritual wisdom. And when united, they guide us seamlessly through the life's challenges. So the critical point here is that we need to identify the self-control in us, which is the Arjuna, and also we need to identify the charioteer in us, which is Krishna. So with that reflection, let's see the next set of shlokas. So here Sanjaya is describing the conch of different blew by the different Pandava people. So let's quickly see that.
पाञ्चजन्यं हृषीकेशः देवदत्तं धनञ्जयः पौण्ड्रं दध्मौ महाशङ्खं भीमकर्मावृकोदरः अनन्तविजयं राजा कुन्तीपुत्रो युधिष्ठिरः नकुलः सह देवश्च सुघोषमणिपुष्पकौ काश्यश्च परमेश्वासः शिखण्डी च महारथः धृष्टद्युम्नो विराडश्च सात्यकिश्चापराजितः द्रुपदो द्रौपदेयाश्च सर्वशः पृथिवीपते सौभद्रश्च महाबाहुः शङ्खान् दध्मुः पृथक् पृथक् सघोषोद्धार्तराष्ट्राणां हृदयानि व्यदारयत् नभश्च पृथिवीं चैव तुमुलो व्यनुनादयन्.
So this is a word painting of the scene that is happening in the battlefield. So after hearing Bhishma's initiation for war and the response from the Kaurava army and a disharmony in the way the sounds were coming, Krishna and Arjuna were introduced to the battlefield in the previous shloka along with the horses and the chariot. And now he is saying that Panchajanyam Rishikeshaha. Krishna was the first one to blow the conch. He blew his famous conch called Panchajanyam. And Arjuna blew his conch. The name of his conch was Devadattam. So everybody had their own conch with a specific sound. So Panchajanyam Rishikeshaha, Devadattam Dhananjayaha, Paundram Datmau Mahashankau, Bhimakarma Vrikodara. The one who is capable of the mighty actions, Bhima, Bhimakarma Vrikodara, he blew his conch. Paundram, his conch name was Paundram. It was a big conch, and he blew his conch called Bhimakarma. The Paundram he blew. And then Yudhishthira's conch was Ananda Vijayam. That was the name. Nakula and Sahadeva, the other two Pandavas, they blew their conch. Sukhosha and Manipushpaka, that was the name. So Krishna's conch was Panchajanyam, Arjuna was Devadatta, Bhima was Poundra, Yudhishthira was Ananda Vijaya, Nakula and Sagadeva was Sukhosha and Manipushpaka. And the other prominent people in Pandava army, Kash, the king of Kashi, Shikhandi, Trishtadhyumna, Virataha, Satyaki, all those people started blew their conch. So there, this way the war has started. The Bhishma initiated and the others responded. Drupato Draupateyascha, Drupada, the king of Panchala, Drupada, and the sons of Draupadi, the 5 sons of Draupadi, they also blew their conch. Saubhadra, like Abhimanyu, the son of Subhadra, Arjuna's son Abhimanyu, he also blew. Shankhan, Dakmau, Pratak Pratak, all those people started blew their conch. And Sakhosho Dhartarashtranam Kridayani Vyadarayan. This noise or this sound, even though they were harmonious, it created some fear in the heart of Dhritarashtra's son, the Kaurava army. Because this sound, Napascha Pridhivim Chaija, the earth and the heaven was reverberated in that whole sound. It was harmonious, but as Avanti was explaining, when you're not at the side of the dharma, you get that fear factor. So that is what happened to Kauravas. So the summary of this shloka is mainly it enumerates the different conches and also the response of the Pandava forces. So this is the whole scene. What is happening in the battlefield of Kurukshetra is brilliantly painted by Vyasa. The confluence of conch, war drums, and this epic battle, that scene is set properly. And when the Kauravas created that noise, the Pandava army responded, but unified response in harmony. That is the second point. And this was the code of conduct of the ancient wars. Before the actual war happens, you properly go step by step because it was dharmic wars. And every conch name with a legacy is highlighted. So a few more points here. What exactly is the subjective aspect of this shloka? We said last week we talked about this automatic thoughts. The automatic thoughts created by destructive emotions as well as the adharmic thoughts, they pulls us down. Whenever we face a situation, many automatic thoughts comes to our mind. Typically, they are pulls us down. It is the fear. It projects we saw that last time, right? It projects the worst case scenario in any situation. It tries to pull down. But are we a helpless victim of this situation? This shloka tells us that no, you can create that positive thinking. You can, when you are guided by the spiritual wisdom, these positive thoughts, these uplifting thoughts and emotions also comes as automatic thoughts. This positive thinking and vibrations, it will have a tremendous impact on our life because it can change the way we perceive the situation and we handle the situation. So this is extremely important to cultivate that Krishna. So these shlokas 14 and 19 reminds us that these thoughts, positive thoughts and vibrations are within us, and this can be initiated by the self-control guided by the spiritual wisdom. And Arjuna represents the spiritual self-control and Krishna represents the spiritual wisdom. What is self-control? It is our ability to control his emotions and behaviors in guidance with the higher goals. So just like what Krishna's guidance, the self-control will be able to bring our attention to what needs to be focused at a point of time. That is what is important. And initially you have to practice it, and eventually what happens, this will become our second nature. Our thoughts will be always positive, uplifting, and this is the promise Krishna and Arjuna gives. A few more points. There are different conches represented in the Pandava forces. Manipushpaka. Manipushpaka is the conch of Sahadeva. Literal meaning is that which becomes manifest by its sounds. Mani Pushpaka. Pushpaka means manifest. That which manifests by mani, meaning its sound. So the idea is it talks about the focus of yours, because whenever there is a situation happens, your mind will go in different direction. This Manipushpaka, or listening to that Manipushpaka within us, it helps you to focus where your attention needs to be. When you are in a crisis, there is no point in thinking about all the other thing. You should be laser focused on what is going to help you. That is what is Manipushpaka. Sukhosha means that which sounds clear and nice and sweet. Sukhosha means sound. Sukhosha means what is good. So it helps you to go beyond that doubting or confusing state of the mind. That is what is Sukhosha. Devadatta means gift from divine, getting connected with our potential, that is self-control. This is a gift given to each one of us by the divine to get to live an efficient life, effective life, and the right life. And Pauntra means that which disintegrates. It disintegrates all the lower tendencies of mind. That is the Pauntra. Ananta Vijaya, that which conquers the infinite. Ananta Vijaya, that which leads me to that ultimate victory. It helps me to stay calm, quiet, and controlled. And finally, Panchajanya, that which generates the five element. It is that spiritual essence in me. It is that spiritual call, keeping us in the path of good and leading to the highest purpose of the life. These are the symbolism of these shlokas. So these shlokas reminds us that the potential for the positive thoughts and uplifting thoughts and vibrations are always within us, and they are going to help us in to face any situations of our life. So these thoughts scares all the negativity in us. This is very important. So it's very important that we identify these thoughts and lead a life aligning with that. Just a reference, if you look at the positive thinking, even the psychology, for the modern psychology, this positive thinking is the means to get out of stress. So I can quote several articles. One of the peer-reviewed article is from Mayo Clinic. It tells that the positive thinking and optimism, it is going to benefit a lot of our health and well-being. It will increase our lifespan. It will lower the rate of depression. It will help to control our stress. Everything. Well, mainly it is leading us to the well-being.
Yeah. So again, I'm going to go back to the word translations because that's how I have studied it, and it's become very practical for me in my life. So again, now when we talk about, we've spoken about Sanjaya, if you have to rewind your memory a little bit, that what is this Sanjaya's role? You know, this very impartial and he's not really, he can't, he's a witness, right? He's a Sakshi there, and he's just supposed to relate the whole unfolding of the Kurukshetra battlefield to Dhritarashtra. So he's not really allowed to take sides. But you'll see that there is always a slight, very, very clever way of how he sides the Pandavas. It's very evident the way the difference in the descriptions and, you know, the words he uses. So some of the words that I want to highlight, these are very nice to just remember how our wisdom speaks to us and how our ego speaks to us. So if you understand these things, you'll become more alert and aware about what's happening in your own mind and your own psyche. So in this verse 16 especially, he uses the word King Yudhishthira. Now, he's not really, Yudhishthira is not the king right now. Dhritarashtra is the king. Duryodhana, he's already said, is King Duryodhana. But why does he use the word King Yudhishthira? Just to remind Dhritarashtra that Yudhishthira is the two things. A, to remind him that Yudhishthira is the rightful king. And B is almost a prophecy that, look, this is going to play out in such a way that he is going to be king. In exactly that way, our conscience is constantly very cleverly, very subtly telling us what is right and what is wrong. It doesn't take sides. If you're doing wrong, it's not going to stand up and say, oh, you're doing wrong, completely wrong, because you're not even going to listen to it. But these subtle, you know, there's this very famous thing that keeps going on around in WhatsApp is trust your gut. It never lies. It's that kind of a thing, you know, that it's so soft. You have to really become very astute to listen to it. So it's almost a prophecy. Like at every point, if you pay attention to the tone of his words and his voice when he's speaking to Dhritarashtra, he's trying to awaken Dhritarashtra from his stupor of this blindness, that look, this party is in the right, this party is in the wrong. So you have to awaken to the truth and do the right thing. So again, over here in verse 18, he calls Dhritarashtra Prithvipati, Lord of the earth. Why does he say that? Because on this particular occasion, if anybody can dramatically stop what's about to happen, is Dhritarashtra. So you will see this consistent effort of Sanjaya trying to tell Dhritarashtra what is right. Not that Dhritarashtra doesn't know it, but trying to awaken in some way his conscience. So he's reminding him, you're the Lord of the earth, wake up to the truth. Now, again, I've already said this, but I'll reiterate it over here. Verse number 19, when he says the divine conscious sound, created havoc inside the Kauravas' hearts, is because unrighteousness is mortally afraid of righteousness. Now, take this within ourselves. Forget about when we go and try to correct somebody else, or when we try to go and tell the truth to somebody else. When we listen to the truth about ourselves, there's an earthquake within us. There is a complete resistance. There is a pushing away. They're saying no. There is resistance. And that is exactly the tumultuous uproar or the fear that was created in the Kauravas' hearts. And that's what happens to us. So it requires a great amount of commitment to this. Yes, I want to transform spiritually, to be able to absorb the truth that comes to us about our own lives. Forget about correcting anybody else. All the time when we study about Gita, we have to say, yes, I am the Arjuna. We don't have to identify the confused Arjunas in other people's lives. But in our own life, we ourselves are the Arjuna. And how do we correct ourselves? Now, very nicely, again, Rajeshji brought in the automatic thoughts, right? He talked about the negative automatic thoughts that have a force of its own. One thought comes and like a domino effect, we go down the drain of all negative thoughts until we find ourselves in an abyss that we are not even able to be retrieved from. So we have to work ourselves to this positive thinking that's right now on our screens. We have to work ourselves. How do we work ourselves to that? Swami Chinmayananda has given the most beautiful, succinct steps towards that. But it requires great commitment on our part. It's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-step process. Okay. So his first instruction, introspect daily. Now, the way we've written this book, it is very easy for us to see where we stand and where we should be. Because every conch is also explained in a very practical manner of what it represents. So using this knowledge that we are learning from the Gita and being honest, nobody can tell you whether you're good or bad. In the end, you're sleeping on your own pillow alone, no matter who's sleeping next to you. And you are standing in front of your own conscience. So against the scriptural knowledge that we're learning week by week by week, we introspect daily. This is what is right. This is the dharma. This is the scripture that is being taught to us. And this is where I am. So you introspect daily. You detect diligently these automatic thoughts and these automatic actions that we are performing that is keeping us in that loop of depression, fear, whatever it is that we are struggling with. We have to be able to detect diligently. But we can only detect that with the first step of taking in the wisdom and being honest with where we are. So you detect what is not right in your life. I won't call it good or bad. Whatever is not conducive towards your highest best self, you detect that diligently. Third is you negate ruthlessly. You commit that that is wrong in me, that is impeding my own growth, material or spiritual. I'm going to negate it and I'm going to replace it with that positive thought. Daily, every single night we do this. Okay. Then we substitute wisely. Now that we have realized what is wrong in our own charts, in our own personality charts, we are luckily getting the knowledge. Each negative automatic thought, we substitute wisely with a positive thought. And then slowly we see ourselves growing steadily. So the 5-step process is introspect daily, detect diligently, negate ruthlessly, substitute wisely, and grow steadily. Once we begin doing this on a daily basis, then we can come to that step where we say, what do we do with our negative thoughts? Immediately somebody would say, oh, immediately put in a positive thought. It's not possible in the heat of the moment if you haven't gone through this practice daily, for months, for years, for some. So we have to start this pick one thought in your life that is really impeding. You know what's impeding you, what's standing in your way. We always think this is coming in my way, he is coming in my way, this circumstance is stopping me, this. It all comes down to our own thoughts. And as we study the Gita further, we will bring the onus back of the debacle our lives are onto our own shoulders. We will not put it on anybody else. So this 5-step process, I'll send it again in the Q&A later on. If we can start today itself, commit today itself with whatever we are studying week by week by week. And this is the best time to start, because each of the characters, we have so diligently made them very practical. We've connected them to our own psyche. The conches, we are telling you so beautifully, Rajesh made that slice of what each slide of which each conch represents. So when we have this knowledge now, we just put it in relation to where we are and we start employing this 5-step process. So this practice is what's going to get us to that ability that every time one negative thought hits, we are able to substitute it immediately with 3 positive thoughts, and we don't go down that spiral into that abyss that is really dark and dreary.
Thank you. That completed what we wanted to cover. Next week we will explain 2 things we didn't explain on that Shloka 14 to 19 are the 2 names of Krishna. One is Madhava, the other one is Rishikesha. And also we will little bit deep dive into the name of Bhima used, Vrikodara. So Madhava, we have seen that during the Gita Dhyanam, but still we will just deep dive into that or double click into that. So is the name Rishikesha. And finally, we will talk about the Bhima Karma.